Hi, it's Ileana, and we're getting a lot of UFO sightings happening, or these UAPs, as they're now called, unidentified aerial phenomenon. So, this all goes back to Mars. It goes back to planetary corporations, which has 11 bases on Mars and one base on Pluto that I'm aware of, where they have the Lazarus Project, which is a time traveling project where you can go with the mind backwards in time, forwards in time, or the middle of time, also reanimating people back from the dead. It's also a cryogenics project to retether the soul to the body. So that's a major project that Planetary Corp is involved with on Pluto. And these triangular craft that many of the airline pilots and military pilots are now seeing, this is mostly surveillance drones from the SSP, Planetary Corp, and some of the bigger craft are actually sometimes manned by human crews who work for Planetary Corp and other SSP factions like Solar Warden, Kruger, Dark Fleet, Radiant Guardian, Mars Defense Force, Earth Defense Force, Space Alliance, and other programs. These UFOs are indeed off-world, but they're not extraterrestrial in nature at this point. They've been reverse engineered from their original crash sites in 1947 Roswell, New Mexico incident, where there were 3 crafts recovered with great type robotic bodies who were dead and manning these craft. Those were downed because there was an electromagnetic pulse that was released, and also a storm, magnetic storm. With the culmination of both, those craft came down out of hyperdrive, basically, out of warp space, because they can be in hyperspace with their hyperdrive engines flying about. Sometimes they can be pulled out of space unexpectedly if there's solar magnetic phenomenon around a star system, around the sun. They can be pulled out of the hyperspace corridor and into normal space, and that can cause crafts to veer off course and crash land on planets or end up somewhere where they shouldn't be in another solar system, because the cosmic web is full of portals. It's the highway system of space, where it could connect you to different portals, and where the ships can beam in and out of the portals and get to where they're going faster, or they can be in hyperspace just doing travel beyond the cosmic web if they want. Hyperspace is a little slower than the cosmic web, but it's still faster than traveling in normal space. So SSP craft have warp drives, warp engines, plasma engines. They have crystalline propulsion systems now. They can go beyond the speed of light and travel to places, to a different solar system or even galaxy within a couple of hours. It doesn't take months and light years to reach something. That is with fuel propellant. In typical Earth-based craft, it would take hundreds of years to reach a planet, especially that's light years away. So we're not using traditional fuel-based propellant craft anymore in space. And humans have gone beyond Earth, beyond what we call the firmament. You can leave the firmament, you can leave a planetary body and travel in space. It's been done. The moon is colonized by SSP, Mars is colonized by SSP, Pluto. They're all busy planets with business going on there, human personnel. So getting back to those triangular craft that many pilots are seeing, both commercial pilots and military pilots. So again, they're seeing mostly surveillance drones from the SSP and some of the bigger craft that are sometimes manned. Those craft, they used to hover over my house all the time. It first looks like a shooting star as the craft descends from transwarp, from that field or hyperspace. Then it materializes as a physical triangular craft with 4 lights hovering in the sky. It's very typical, and it happens all the time to some of the friends that I have that are remote viewers and psychics. If we look at their activities of trying to see something what the SSP is doing, or other programs or extraterrestrials, then they end up watching us as well, swarming our houses with drones, the triangular drones, or somebody's in the crafts, the bigger crafts, basically the TR-3Bs, the TR-6s, the TR-10s. That's what's in our skies, and some of the stuff that looks like the gimbal, the tic-tac, that's SSP stuff. And it's sort of like a warning system to let us know that they can come anytime that they want and monitor us. So it's basically, when I was remote viewing the locations of the bases on the moon and Mars, my house would be swarmed with a triangular craft. So I would photograph the formations as much as I could and put almost 100 photos cataloged in my first published books. Some experiencers who had similar incidents also volunteered their photos for comparison analysis to be published, so I'm not the only one who's seen triangular craft and photographed them. A friend of mine has seen them over their house and photographed them. They look like light ships, or they may look like a shooting star that materializes into these flashing lights. So it's interesting how this can happen, because it can appear like a shooting star is coming out from the sky. It just appears there, hovering, like it looks like a shooting star, and it's hovering. It's just hovering there, and it has anti-grav propulsion system. That's why it can hover and just then disappear off the screen of somebody's airplane or radar, or it might not even appear on radar at all. Some of these craft don't, because they have cloaking shielding. Even though somebody might physically see the craft, you don't see it on radar because it's shielded against that. Or it will wink out and disappear quickly, recloak itself, and you don't see it. So I've seen the shooting star phenomenon, and then the lights appear, or the triangle appears, because it comes out of hyperspace or warp space, and it has its own warp bubble around it. So that's how it can travel at these large speeds and do these different maneuvers. These crafts don't need to have wings. They can be circular, they can be round, they can be triangular, they can be any shape you want them to be made into. They're very compact and very quick and fast. They can travel at different velocities. They can make zigzagging moves left and right. They can go underwater. They can go above the atmosphere. They can be in the atmosphere. They can travel on planet, off planet. And yes, there is a higher intelligence controlling these crafts remotely. It's SSP assets with Neuralink implants in their brains. They can remotely control the drones. And even the larger craft, we don't need crews on them to pilot the craft. But some of these crafts are manned with human SSP personnel. And the shooting star phenomenon, that's nothing new. ET experiencers, ET contactees, pilots, they've seen something in the night sky that looks like a star, a shooting star, or just a star. It winks in, it has a yellow-blue light, and then 3 other triangles appear like lights, and it forms the triangular-shaped craft. That's the TR-3s, TR-6s, TR-10s, or other sophisticated craft like the gimbal or the Tic Tacs, which looks silver, like seamless silver objects, just hovering or floating in airspace, in Earth airspace. That's SSP stuff. They figured out how to reverse engineer advanced ET craft. So there's no more nuts and bolts. It's seamless. It doesn't have wings. Because it's beyond that. It's beyond simplistic anti-grav tech. It's more advanced tech. So again, there's nothing surprising here about seeing more of these UAPs or UFOs hovering in the skies, flying beside planes or military craft, helicopters, whatever they're flying beside or above and appearing. More of that is going to come up. This is part of soft disclosure, slowly revealing what's out there. And governments will say, yeah, we don't know, it's off-world, it's probably extraterrestrial, it's not ours, it's theirs. They're going to make that case for a while, but it is ours. It's off-planet, off-world, but it's coming from the moon. This technology is coming from the moon, Mars, and other planets in our solar system that SSP is on. It's local. It's in the local star cluster. It's not too far from us. So I wanted to touch base on this information because more UAPs and more UFOs are being spotted off the coast of California, off the coast of Florida, Miami. There's a lot of case sightings happening also in Canada, British Columbia, Kelowna, Surrey, BC. These places are hotspots for triangular craft. From the various human bases, DUMBs in the Rocky Mountains. The Rocky Mountains have a huge base system underground. Then there's NORAD, that's connected to NORAD in Cheyenne Mountain. So these crafts, they can land underground in the bases. Nobody would see them. They can come from the moon, Mars, and they're connected to Earth Defense Force as well. So there's that to think about as well. The proximity to what Canada and the US is connected to. The underground DUMBs bases, the military bases, some of them are still there. They're active. And these crafts can land in the underground hangars and connect with Earth Defense Force and Space Alliance. We also have Area 51, the S4 underground facility in Nevada that is reverse engineering UFOs and creating their own craft. So there's the typical military type Area 51 base on the surface, several hangars, landing pads for planes and other things. That's your surface level military base. And there's the underground facilities with the huge black elevator going underground into the bioengineering labs, the craft reverse engineering labs, where they can build UFOs now without the nuts and bolts, seamless. They do experiments on different genetics projects, biowarfare stuff, chemical stuff, viruses, you name it, they do it. Ancient artifacts. They do research on ancient artifacts that have been recovered from Antarctica, Nepal, Tibet, and other places. We've studied a lot of things like sentient AI from artifacts. There's also many other bases like Holloman Air Force Base. There are other bases we don't even know about that's underground. Area 51 is the most obvious one. Bob Lazar was one of the first scientists to talk about it since he worked there. I had been abducted to Area 51. It's one of the biggest hubs for spotting UFOs. I was working in the bioengineering lab and I saw UFOs in a different section. There were circular type craft there. There are other bases. Area 51, the underground facility, has many different levels going underground, and it's self-sustainable now. They don't depend on the surface space for their power or electricity. They generate that on their own. They're self-sufficient. But they're interconnected. So what's on the surface of the Earth sometimes is just a facade for military facilities. There's more underground in what they make. There's also skunk works, Lockheed Martin skunk works. They also produce UFO craft, reverse engineered craft now. The aeronautics corporations and the contractors like Lockheed, Skunk Works is one of the bigger ones that are in the UFO business. Yes, they are. One of the big leaguers. So, various players in the game of UFOs and UAPs. SSP, Earth contractors, aerospace programs, aerospace companies, they're all in on it. Northrop Grumman is also doing UFO production stuff. So these are the big leagues, the big boys. Welcome to a new reality of UFOs and UAPs being in the public sector. They've officially been recognized as real crafts that we're seeing that are spotted on radar. More sightings happening and more will keep happening. This is disclosure and more of it will come. The questions will rise. Where is this stuff coming from? Who's making it? Why is it floating above our skies? These questions will keep on coming up. They'll be in various reports and the answers will be vague. We don't know. It's off-world. Yes, we acknowledge that. Eventually, they can't give us vague answers anymore and they'll have to spill the truth. And it will come out in portions and segments as it does in 3D reality, but the secret is out. The stuff is real. It's not a figment of our imagination. It's very real. And we'll see other types of things floating in the skies. This is just the beginning of it. Just the beginning. I've been asked why UFOs and UAPs move so fast. Why are they called the fast movers? Why do they have such high speed, both for the UFOs and the UAPs? Is because they have hyperdrive engines, they have warp drive engines, they have plasma engines, they have crystalline-based propulsion systems. They don't have typical fuel propellant that's powering them. They have anti-grav propulsion systems that's beyond the normal SpaceX rockets or the spaceship that even SpaceX is using. It's beyond that. That's why they're so fast and they can make these weird maneuvers and suddenly appear and disappear from transwarp drive or from hyperspace, is because they're beyond rocket fuel. They're beyond even ionization. So it's all smooth hyperdrive stuff, hyperspace. The way the crafts are propelled themselves, they are not heavy dense in metal like the shuttles, like NASA shuttles or SpaceX vehicles. They're not as heavy because they have stuff like bismuth and other crystalline properties that have several metallic layers enmeshing in what forms the UFO, and they have that warp bubble around them. That's what makes them lighter. That's what makes them easier to maneuver, whether they're manned by personnel, crews on them, or remotely manned. This technology is light, it's quick, and it is very fast. It's high speed, and it moves quickly. And often these craft look like silver metallic objects that have this translucent quality to them. That's the new metals being used beyond the human periodical table. Yes, it's made with off-world materials in other periodic tables. So in the metallic resources available, like bismuth, and bismuth is not very natural to Earth. It's lab grown mostly. And you can create other elements to make these lighter craft, to make the mesh layers, the metallic sequencing that makes these craft lighter and easier for electromagnetic propulsion systems to be connected to the craft to fly them in hyperspace and transwarp drive capacities and situations. So all of this technology is like several hundred years more advanced than what we're presented with currently in the Earth space programs. We can go beyond just space stations, beyond Earth, and we have. Thank you so much, and namaste.